let's take a look. You're Champions Dude, so we can do nuts and bolts. We call these things, and I know that in 6th edition they renamed disadvantages complications.
Yeah, they renamed a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm going one step a little different. I'm using a more active concept. Situations.
Okay.
These are the situations that you envision your character to be in. And so for your character's situations, here I am, caught without my stuff. You're familiar with most of them. Dependent non-player characters, hunteds, are 2 things. The identities, public and secret identity, with the all-important option of neither. And then you have the various physical ones: susceptibility, dependence, vulnerability. And add to that one an interesting concept called side effect. Side effect has a trigger state, just like some of the others. And side effect's trigger state means that you've picked an attack power which hits your character, and you have no defense. And so the concept is very wide open. But it's always something you do. Some aspect of something you do, bam, the side effect's going to nail you. And people have come up with some really interesting ideas for it. One guy had a profound instant change-based character. And he said that when he changed back out of his hero form, the side effect was an energy blast with like an explosive quality, right, that hit him, and it had an area effect, so it was everything around him. Right, so basically his whole literally sitting in a crater, and not only that, but he was entangled. It was a big one. And so basically he's like trapped in this exploded spot when he changes back. So the point is that you get as many points for that as the power that you're being hit with. Just like for dependent non-player characters, they're defined by their situations. So you pick a set of situations for them, and that's how many points you get for the non-player character. So it doesn't have anything to do with like how competent they are or anything like that. It's like their problems are your problems. How bad is it? So there's a couple other interesting points. The big twist on dependent non-player characters and hunteds is that your presence won't work on them. Or as a good friend of mine put it, your nemesis has had it with your bullshit. He's done with your bullshit. He's heard it all. Then we have so those are the physical ones. We should go, I think the only major one after this category after that is pretty much the psychological stuff. And I went way back to the rules. I went and I read exactly what they said. And it's really interesting. It's just as I remembered, but seems to have kind of been lost. It doesn't matter what the psychological position is. It can be reasonable or unreasonable. It can be crazy. It can be normal. It can be offbeat, or it can be just ordinary. I love my wife. I love my goat. Okay, that's a little weird. I love goats more than people. Okay, that's really weird. I think goats rule the world. You're nuts. It doesn't matter. It's the same number of points for all of them. And what matters is how often does it come up and how strong is your reaction. And so, and you get more points for the more common, and you get the more points for the more strong your reaction. The most extreme form of that is Enrage. I got rid of Berserk. Berserk's just not fun. And so we're gonna have Enrage, because Enrage is all right because you can recover from it, and it's
focused.
Yeah,
it has a meaning behind it,
exactly.
Whereas Berserk really didn't, and it just didn't seem to fit the superhero setting.
Well, not only that, but if you actually look at the Hulk, when the Hulk goes Berserk, he's never attacking randomly. He's always going after what pissed him off.
Right. Yeah. So it's an Enrage.
Yeah, I know what I think it is exactly. I think a big part of it is that early champions, all champions, its whole history has been very, very marked with the huge love affair that comics fandom had with Wolverine. The early Wolverine. Just loved. So killing attacks are grossly overpowered. And, everybody wants to go enrage. Everybody wants an enrage. And it's like, we gotta go Wolverine. So, anyway, though, here, let's think about the situations for your character. Some of them pop right out of the character as you've described, right? And so, and there's always unusual looks. That's also related. These are all pretty similar to the original, except for some of the tweaks that I just mentioned. I also have a real nice chart for who says what the character does down the line of the categories of the psychological stuff. So, to put it briefly, if you have an irrational reaction, you can either say what the character does that's irrational, or you can voluntarily kick it to the GM to do so. You can't. The GM will not just grab your character by the scruff and make them do the irrational thing, right? That happens actually with Enrage, but it doesn't happen with the psychological one. So he will, however, he is in charge of whether it's triggered. So you see, I've kind of like tried to define the power input of who gets to do what and say what about things like that. So really, with that in mind, let's go ahead and look at some of the things that crop up. Do you want to say them, or should I?
I want to see what you thought of.
Right. Okay. Well, just going off your corners, we've got the alien hunted. Mm-hmm. We've got and we've got. I'll do the easy ones first. Mm-hmm. The main one, really, of course, is the unfamiliarity with things.
Yes.
And that can come actually in two ways. There's ways to... By the way, those categories I was talking about? You can only get 50 points from each block. You can get a lot of a given kind, but you can't just take them all that way. So, all right, we've got the hunted. Now, to go with sort of the fish out of water, I'm going to do two. One is unusual looks. And one is going to be psychological.
Yeah, right? Stuff she just doesn't know.
Right, or a couple of things about that. The unusual looks, I think, is more the stuff she doesn't know. That's when she sort of does stuff that's maybe values dissonant and stuff like that. Is it's not just her appearance; it's the fact that she's doing something weird. That's
I remember. Just a cute example of that. There was a Disney cartoon, Star versus the Forces of Evil,
right? With
this princess that was from another dimension, and she was frightened by, and they got angry with and attacked a water fountain because she didn't understand.
Yep. There you go.
Everyone was just staring at her, going, "Oh!"
Exactly, right.
Example of that distinctive features because from an unfamiliar with Earth.
Absolutely. And so you've got those, and it's unusual looks because people aren't getting it. Because she's beautiful and princess-like, it's real dissonant for them, and so they have this negative reaction. So that's one. Then the psychological one is more of a values thing. A lot of, I don't know if you want to put it this way, because you're the one who should really be suing this, but something like, I don't get a lot of basic values. Maybe there are certain things that are real basic that you and humans don't have any problem with, but there's a lot of them that you don't. And it's going to be kind of up to us to find out as we play just where your character's gears slip with people. Now, if it's that way for everything, then your character is irritating. So it's going to be up to you. Just do the ones you want.
Yeah, it'll be stuff that makes sense for a different culture and not something that isn't relatable at all.
Yeah, and also, as you say, you're more the author of this than I am, so I'm just going to discover what you think is fun for this. And so this is common, but, just to keep your character from being bonkers, it's not irrational, right? It's not irrational. It's not like she'll just do it blindly and not listen to anybody. She just doesn't know. You're going to bounce into it, and you're going to be, shit, and cope, right? And so that's 15 points right there. For the mid-level unusual looks, that'll get you 10. For the alien, the hunted we'll deal with in just a moment. The hunted point structure is a little different than it is in the original. but not too much. Okay, so those are the ones that really come to mind for the situations. For other things, do you want to have, for example, obsessive people? You see, hunters now are defined as either ruinous, including wanting to kill you, possibly, or manipulative. They want you to do something and they want you influenced, whether overtly or covertly, depending on who they are. They want to mess with you. So that means that you can have a hunted who is kind of like a fan base or anything like that. Or maybe it's like an activist group that wants you to be their, who sort of adopted you. But the point is that if they're a hunted, it means that what they want probably just isn't something you want. Or it really isn't.
That's an interesting way of making it more flexible. I like that.
And so the thing is that, well, for one thing, it's what I discovered in play. Most of our raw, I'm going to kill you hunters through play became much more invested in stuff about the hero than they did about just wanting to, kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the way I like to look at it is Mephisto doesn't want to destroy the Silver Surfer. Mephisto wants the Silver Surfer to give in.
Yeah, he wants to use them.
Right. And, he wants to agree. He wants good to fail. He doesn't care about the Silver Surfer. He wants goodness to fail. And depending on who's writing Doctor Doom, does he really want to beat Richards or does he want Richards to like him? Right. That's so depending on who's writing him. But okay, so with this in mind, we've got those are the three that come to my mind. Any other situations? I mean, I mentioned the thing about the other hunted because I was thinking about the fish out of water. Is there some aspect of dealing with people that's resulted in something that you would consider a hunted? Maybe something more negative than that. I don't know.
Part of it would depend on the game world.
Consider it to be us.
Real life? Okay.
Just with superheroes. Yeah, just like the way, remember, back then, that's how they wrote it, right?
Yeah.
They were just writing in the world, and they had superheroes in it, and nobody gave a shit, right?
Okay. She'd probably have two hunteds then. One would be the aliens that took out a world. They'd be ruinous because they just want to wipe out every last part of that civilization and that people because that's what they're like, because they're comic book bad guy aliens.
Got it.
The other hunted would be a terrestrial one because the government and other such agencies would be very interested in this space alien with superpowers.
Right. So yeah,
and they don't want to kill her. That's the last thing they want to do because she's so valuable. But they might want to use her for stuff she might not want to do.
Department of Defense?
Yeah.
Okay. Department of Defense, exactly. Manipulative. Yeah. And so the that sounds great. I should point out, you know how in the old Champions that you had to have your disadvantages as you got more of them? Mm-hmm. That's not what we do here. I just set a cap for how many.
Okay.
And then they cost what they cost. There's no like halving and stuff like that for that. So you could have more hunteds than just two, as long as they don't exceed 50 points of hunteds total.
Okay.
So
I don't think she'd like that.
Yeah. And so we've got those. They're both organizations, so that's 5. That's weird. Okay, so that's going to be 20. I think they're both going to be about 20 points each. So the point structure in this game is a little different in that every point kind of matters more. The value of the points is deflated. So I recommend starting at 200, which ends up being a little weaker than your 250 point old school champions, but not much.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it would be about the equivalent of like a 350 or 400 one in 6th edition.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, because exactly the way it happened.
Yeah. And so Now, and also recall that in this game, we're going back to the old way of doing it, where you don't have to pay for like how many languages you know. You don't have to pay for knowing how to, pilot a plane.
It's not overly granular.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I've really elbowed that in the eye pretty hard. So if it's in your person corner, you don't have to pay for it. That's all there is to it. Unless you want to juice it up into comic book level, then you do. You're a circus acrobat, but if you take acrobatics, now you have comic book acrobatics.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And a few other things like that. Just like that, the points don't scale downward. Below 200 points, they don't make sense. In other words, you don't build a normal person with skills. You don't build like a dude who's a computer expert in this game. He's just a computer expert.
You wouldn't bother studying the whole thing.
Yeah, and they've all got the same dexterity, the same whatever. That's the points are not supposed to go down there. They go up from where we are. They don't go down. So, and then you say, well, what about trained agents? I have rules for that. They're called hazards. the dudes with their blasters running at you in a big group, all shouting and firing badly, are a hazard. So with any point, you build the hazard with its points. We're looking at right now at 65 points, and and so we have 35 more to go, because it's the old thing: 100 free, then 100 for situations gives you 200. So with that, then we have 35 points to go, and we don't have to do them all, but you could definitely toss in more psychology. Mm-hmm. You've got quite a bit of psychology to go in terms of points. And so therefore you could definitely put in things that she idealizes, or things that she likes or loves or wants. And you could, and that kind of gives the character a little oomph, something to look at. If she's gotten close to somebody on the planet and sort of internalize that person's problems, then you've got yourself a nice dependent non-player character. And since there's no longer like the whole, incompetent NPC kind of thing or whatever, the whole point of playing these characters is that they're value added. The entire concept of disadvantage is gone. These are what you want, not what you don't want. So, think if there's somebody that would be a good character, like, for the person that they're close enough to that they care about their problems. So those are some options if you want to go that way. Or if you want to go more toward powers, maybe there's something about her alienness that makes her susceptible or has side effects or something like that.
One thing I thought of personality-wise is that she was brought up to think that, the nobility leadership, which she was part of, was supposed to be benevolent and take care of their people and stuff like that. And she internalized that, so she effectively has kind of a heroic instinct to her.
Right. So that sounds good. You can say like power, power must be benevolent. It's like, it's a value, right? So I've got power. I've got even more power than these Earth people. Power is benevolence. And I kind of like the idea. First of all, do you want that to be like something that kicks in only under stress once in a while? Or is this just the way she talks and the way she looks at things all the time? And then second, could we interpret it as possibly being irrational? In other words, she would do things that would, put things in jeopardy. She would do things that would be quite, throw out those other considerations, whatever they are. This matters.
She wants to do the right thing, but knowing what that is, of course, can be hard, especially when they're unfamiliar with Earth.
Well, you've already got that going for you in the other one, so that's good.
Yeah. As far as how it would kick in, it would probably be fairly common,
right?
Just because of what she is and what power she has. And like she might see something and say, that's wrong, I'm going to stop it.
Right.
And sometimes it could get her into trouble because she might do something that isn't considered appropriate. Like sometimes it would be just fine. Like if she sees a purse snatcher or something like that.
I got you. So that's common and irrational, which nets you a 20. Or not common, often. The phrases I use are often and sometimes.
Yeah.
There's no rare. I don't understand what rare means. Rarely? What do you mean rarely? No, you're in these situations. Sometimes or often. Those are your only options. So, we've got now, that's good. We're looking at 85 points at the moment. And so do you want it to be more like a susceptibility, or do you want a non-player character involved? What works for you?
Would probably make more sense for I'm wondering about one other thing. Since she is an alien, another kind of distinctive features, as in she might not physically look entirely human.
Right.
How that could.
Well, it does. Again, that's totally up to you as to whether we consider that. First of all, that could fold very nicely into the already existing unusual looks. The fact that you engender negative responses partly due to your behavior and partly due to the fact that you're an unusual thing doing the behavior. That all kind of goes together. So that doesn't even have to be, a new thing of its own. Only if it had very different responses would it be a different kind of unusual looks, a different emotion. Same thing.
She's unusual looking, but not horrific or anything like that. She's more like an exotic alien type thing.
The way I put it in the book is that it's not the extremity of the looks that matters. It's the way people respond to it. Comics are full of very weird aliens or monsters that everybody treats normally.
Yeah, so for them it's not a limitation.
Right. It's the way we draw. I'm drawn that way, right? And then there are other characters who are just a little bit off the human model that everybody seems to lose their shit about all the time. So that's what it is. It's that logic. How are people going to react? It's not like how weird the character is.
Yeah. So that wouldn't be, the people wouldn't have a huge reaction. She's just exotic looking because of like Starfire or something like that.
Absolutely. So then we have okay, so go ahead.
Probably it would be more of the non-player character because she's alone. She'd need.
I was thinking the same thing. This person, she needs a little connection here, a little bit of an anchor.
Yeah, she has to try and fit into human society.
Well, let's go then to our location. If we're talking about Ashburn, Virginia, and we're talking about the internet, and we're talking about Washington, D.C., if that's the case, and given that we've already got the Department of Defense after her, who's somebody who's close to her in this context, whose problems are her problems, and is someone that we are going to enjoy seeing in the, in the story, right?
Let's see. Thinking of like a roommate, another woman. Housing's expensive in the area, so it makes sense she'd want the other person would want one to help afford like this townhouse or apartment or whatever in this area. Another woman, she has a young professional. She has a job because there's a lot of that stuff in this area, and thinking how it will be a good way of fitting that into what she gets involved with.
Well, you don't really have to pre-write it. I mean, the best way to do it is to say whatever it is you do. But remember, we're talking about that person's situations. So they've got a hunted, or they've got, a psychological situation, or they've got, a particular side effect or something like that. And let's hold off on that in a little bit, because this is actually a big deal for this character. If this part doesn't work, nothing works.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like, this character sounds really, really, really boring until you say, oh, wait, but they've hooked up with this, they've hooked up with this ex-spy, right? It's ex-spy who's like really, really trying to do, sort of the expose thing. So it's a big deal that they know this person. It's a big thing. And obviously it's very plot defining, very issue arc defining. So it's not just the person who stumbles into your character's path while they're trying to catch the villain. So let's hold off on that. Clearly that's a thing.